Good afternoon. My name is Susan Derwin. I am the director of the Interdisciplinary Humanities Center, and I am delighted to welcome everybody here to our first capstone gathering of the IHC's Public Humanities Graduate Fellows Program. Uh, the Graduate Fellows Program is designed for doctoral students in the humanities and humanistic social sciences who are interested in developing their skills as public humanists. And it consists of coursework, a practicum, and a capstone presentation, of which this is, as I said, our first. This afternoon, we will be hearing from 4 fellows who are completing the program: Mika Thornburg, Junga Sun, Dana Hughes, and Ogle Fakini. Each of them will be reflecting upon their participation in the program and how it has helped them to develop their profiles as publicly engaged scholars. We will also learn from them about how the study and practice of publicly engaged humanities have influenced their academic research and their teaching. After we hear from our 4 fellows, we invite everybody in the proverbial room to participate in an interactive Q&A with the panelists. We encourage you to use the raised hand function, which you can find next to your name when you click on the participants link. Once you raise your hand, I will call on you and you can ask your question directly to the fellow or fellows. You can also put your question into the chat function at the bottom of your screen if you prefer. Please be aware that we are recording this event and that we will be posting it on the IHC's website and YouTube channel. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Mika Thornburg. Mika is a PhD candidate in the history department, specializing in Asian American and Japanese history. Her dissertation research focuses on Japanese migration in the post-World War II period, and she will be spending the next year conducting research in Japan as a Fulbright Fellow. She is interested in public-facing work that explores the history of race and migration in the United States. Mika.
Great, thank you so much, Susan. During my time as a Public Humanities Graduate Fellow last year, I had the immense pleasure of working with Bakersfield College's Digital Delano Archive. For this internship, I designed a project called Learning Through Local Sources that I will share with you later in the presentation. The most valuable thing I learned in the program is the mutually beneficial impacts of partnerships that take place between universities and their surrounding communities. These partnerships, when done thoughtfully, have the potential to not only redistribute resources, but to change the contours of academic disciplines, such as history, as I hope to demonstrate to you in this presentation. So I became interested in the Public Humanities Graduate Fellowship Program for several different reasons. First, I had some experience working in public history prior to entering my graduate program, working with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation after finishing my bachelor's degree. Through this experience, I saw the power and impact public history institutions can have on community building. Although I had gained some skills through my work experience, I was interested in developing them further, so I applied to the Public Humanities Graduate Fellowship. The coursework not only taught me tangible skills, such as how to present to and write for a public audience, but also the theoretical basis from which I would design my internship project, specifically how to think about pedagogy and the importance of listening. This foundation made me particularly interested in and prepared to work with Bakersfield College's Digital Delano project. Digital Delano is a community-driven digital archive centered around preserving the history created by the community it serves. Its aim is to collect artifacts and oral histories that enhance our understanding of the diverse cultural heritage of the Delano community. It gathers collections through an open invitation to the community to contribute donations. Staff make digital copies of materials donated by community members and return the originals, as well as an additional digitized copy, to their owners. This differs from more traditional archives where a curator or a collections manager mediates and facilitates donations, deeming what is worthy of preservation and what is not. So the goal of my internship project was to expand awareness and engagement with the sources that Digital Delano has collected. Using what I had learned about pedagogy from my public humanities history and theory class, I designed lesson plans that use digital Delano materials in the classroom to illustrate how instructors can incorporate the archive sources into lessons. The lessons I designed focused on and highlighted Digital Delano's collection, the Luz Arbolante papers. Luz Arbolante was a Filipino-American writer who was deeply involved in Delano's Filipinx community. In these lesson plans, students are asked to engage with Arbolante sources and think critically about her life, how her position as a Filipina immigrant shaped the sources she left behind, and what her sources reveal about local, national, and international issues. In addition, I demonstrated the benefits and impact of including these materials in course curriculum in a presentation to Bakersfield College faculty. Archival materials in general are great teaching tools because they allow students to practice the work and skills of historians firsthand, such as primary source analysis, source contextualization, and consolidating evidence into a narrative. However, the archival sources that Digital Delano houses offer an even more important impact for Bakersfield students specifically and history more broadly. As a digital archive, Digital Delano materials are portable and can be easily brought into a classroom. Because these sources are from the community that many of these students have lived in, the materials have the capacity to personalize history for these students in a way that more standard or well-known primary sources cannot. These sources offer students a chance not only to engage with voices and stories from their own community, but also to think about how local history connects to larger narratives at the regional, national, and even international levels. So in connection with the lesson plans I designed, I also created an oral history guide that helps instruct students on how they can conduct their own oral histories, a course project I suggest in my lesson plans. Oral histories are a great way to preserve community history. Asking students to conduct their own oral history interviews with family or community members and to donate their interviews to the archive not only helps to grow Digital Delano's collection, but it also allows students to participate in the making of community sources and community history. It also helps expand digital awareness of Digital Delano and the work that it's doing among the Bakersfield community. Completing the Public Humanities Fellowship Program has helped me to reflect on, articulate, and strengthen my position, approach, and commitments to historical study. It has also taught me the skills and practices I need to make my aspirations of doing community engaged work possible as I continue my graduate program and my professional career. The program has illustrated to me the importance of doing community engaged work, as well as how to do it well. My project demonstrates a mutually beneficial way for the university to use its resources to help surrounding communities while also providing worthwhile, impactful, historical, and educational experiences to students. Additionally, I have learned that a key aspect of partnership is the importance of listening. In listening to these communities, we can learn alternative forms of knowing and of valuing. Working with Digital Delano has really shown me this. The community, through their donations, mark time and value in different ways than dominant narratives of history, such as national ones. The history that this archive tells illuminates and centers different moments, ones we may not find in an archive with more traditional collection methods, our classrooms, or our academic work. However, listening is only the first step. These relationships must be built from a place of partnership. We must also understand the needs and desires of the communities we listen to and partner with. We must give back in the way that communities desire us to. In the case of Digital Delano, the aim and desire was to be heard. These voices had been donated, and the next step was to animate them and make them accessible. Listening and responding to the needs of communities benefits not only the communities being served, but also the academy and the future researchers and students of history. There is much that academic institutions can learn from the communities they reside in. Engaging the voices, knowledges, and perspectives of local communities into our pedagogy, research, and our own conception of the world honors these ways of knowing and makes for fruitful discussions that have the potential to change the contours of our given fields. As a public humanist and academic, I believe that the public humanities not only have the potential to change the relationship between the university and its surrounding community, but also how we as scholars conduct our academic work. I see this as not only compatible, but constitutive of the work I do as a scholar of Asian American studies and Asian American history. Asian American Studies is a field dedicated to investigating the multiple ways of knowing in order to, quote, undo the notion of common objectivity itself, to quote Asian American Studies scholar Candace Chia. Engaging in public-facing work that illuminates and honors alternative forms and ways of knowing and valuing is another way for me to practice the theoretical tenets that I ground my academic work in. No matter where my career leads, whether inside or outside academia, I will take the valuable skills and theoretical foundations that I've learned through this program with me and listen deeply to those I partner with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mika. Our next presenter is Junga Sun. Junga is a PhD candidate in the Department of Media Arts and Technology, and her research interests lie at the intersection of emerging technologies and new media art. Her dissertation research focuses on developing a creativity tool that incorporates emotions into artwork in virtual reality. Junga.
Thank you for the introduction. I will begin by introducing myself. I received my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and I did my master's in radiation applied life science. So before entering PhD program, my background was in STEM field. And then I entered media arts and technology program as a PhD student. And as a part of a public humanities program, I did my internship at the Foodbank of Santa Barbara County. So reasons for becoming a public humanities fellow for me was, first, I was interested in internships the program was providing. And then after entering the program, I took required courses, and then I became more interested in humanities. First class I took was skills for the public sphere. There I learned practical skills like writing a cover letter, resume, and writing summary from reading materials. And my final project was writing an analytical report about Moxie Museum at the downtown Santa Barbara. And it was my first time to learn about a nonprofit organization. So it was an interesting experience for me. And second class I took was history and theory of public humanities. Here I learned pedagogy and education and how important the humanities is for everyone in every field. And as I mentioned before, I did my summer internship at the Foodbank of Santa Barbara County, and a Foodbank is a nonprofit organization working to eliminate hunger by providing food, education, and other resources to a network of hunger relief charities and their communities. And my goal for this internship was that I knew that I was going to work with director of community education. So I wanted to learn more about how to present information more public friendly. So at the food bank, I particularly worked in the education team, and they had this curriculum including nutrition information and some practical skills like what to put on your plates to make it healthy. And they wanted to make the information readily available to the public. So my job was to create a website so that they can upload their educational information. So these are some images of the website that I've created. And what I've learned from this experience was, first, I gained some confidence in building a website. And second, I learned ways to effectively deliver content using fonts, colors, and characters. for example, here the color combination and the font and like characters, Foodbank characters, these are like predefined as a brand guide, so that they can serve the people-oriented mission of the Foodbank Santa Barbara. And also I learned that bigger organizational objectives and my interest matching is important for my own motivation to work. And lastly, I gained also insights about web platform technologies. For me, the challenges in this program was first, as a foreigner, I had a difficulty in language. And then secondly, I didn't have any humanities background, so some of the reading materials were difficult for me. But I still learned a lot from this program. First, I didn't, before I didn't really think about bigger goal and long-term goal, how the technology I'm developing will influence society and people. And now I think more about educational purpose of the technology I'm developing. And also from the internship experience, I now think more about how to make online tools more engaging and interactive. So value of the public humanities, for me, as someone who came from STEM background, I realized some problems in STEM education because we don't have, many times we don't have any opportunities to think about long-term goals and how what we are creating will influence the society. And I think the humanities can play important role in this regard. And also through this program, I learned how to think critically as a citizen. This is all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Junga. Our next speaker is Dana Hughes. Dana is a history graduate student, and her research interests are in public memory, gender, and colonialism. She's in her 7th year of graduate study, and she is currently writing her dissertation on a progressive era proponent of colonial revival and historic preservation. So Dana, you're up.
Thank you, Susan, for the great introduction. My name is Dana. As Susan mentioned, I'm a history graduate student, and in particular, public history has always been a major goal, motivation of mine. Almost a decade in various roles that had to do with public history, interpreting history for the public, both inside the graduate program and in various museum roles. So it's been a really important part of my work, and I would really like to make it my full-time career. And my work in the public humanities program, I feel like, has really helped to bring me closer to that. I want to become a more engaged scholar and public historian, and my goal is to interpret narratives of history in a way that really connects and relates to the community. So just on the left there is a photo of Hearst Castle State Park, where I got my start interpreting history. And then on the right there is Direct Relief, a local nonprofit where, as I entered the public humanities program, one debate that I really connected with was the issue of how does one co-create meaning? This was something that had been talked about in various public history texts, so I was sort of familiar with the concepts, but it really helped me to dig in deep to these questions of how does one democratically engage with the public? This is a topic of thinking of how does one facilitate the telling of their stories, how does one there's a platform to do this while bringing one's own methodology as a humanist to the table. And what I'm currently have been working on as a graduate student is being a teaching assistant. So our discussions of pedagogy really brought me to think about, how does one co-create meaning in the classroom? How does one become a teacher who invites collaboration, who invites students to really share why this material is significant to them? And this got me thinking about the community, who is the community, who has been traditionally included and excluded. And so thinking about the community of the university was a really good place to start. And that led me to my final project for the history and theory course, which was designing an app which would tell the stories of the Chumash community, their history on the site that is now UCSB in Isla Vista for students and residents. And even though this app wasn't actually created, it was really useful just in thinking about how to best support others' voices in telling those stories. And one thing that was really helpful in this skills class was to hear firsthand from those who are navigating these issues in museums and nonprofits locally. The image there is of the Presidio here in Santa Barbara. And I really enjoyed Ann Peterson's presentation where she talked about helping her organization to evolve around themes of interpreting multi-layered immigration to that neighborhood. And one area where I was able to develop both my public-facing writing, which I had been working on in the skills class, and co-creating meaning, was becoming an archival fellow at Direct Relief. Direct Relief is a Santa Barbara-based nonprofit focused on assisting those struggling with public health crises by mobilizing and distributing aid. Originally, when I was going to start out in this internship, it was going to be delving into the archives at UCSB Special Collections to gain information about their founder, William Zimden, and their origins, and writing up something about that. However, due to the COVID-19 crisis, the mission of this internship shifted to chronicling history as it unfolded. So I then ended up writing an organizational history, which brought its own questions, basically about Direct Relief and how they've evolved as an organization to meet this worldwide public health crisis. And so this involved a lot of interviewing people from those who were procuring PPE in the very difficult early days of the coronavirus crisis and distributing it to those who needed it most, to people who are working on the ground in the warehouse getting these parcels ready, to excuse me, to people who are helping out at refugee camps abroad, or more locally in California, serving underserved communities as partners with Direct Relief, and really weaving these diverse views together into a coherent narrative. And so I found that being a trained historian really and a humanist really helped me bring these types of skills to the table while upholding these individuals' voices, coming to this nonprofit, and then sort of telling the story of their mission to bring public health equity, grounded in the context of unfolding social issues such as Black Lives Matter, and found that public historians can really have an impact in reminding organizations of their history and their story, and sort of bringing these voices to light. The impacts of my time in the program and the practicum really involve forging connections with the community, with world impactors, collaborating with them to tell these stories of growth and change, and thinking more broadly about how we as academics impact the community. It gave me the confidence to take this methodology and goals of the humanities into a public space while honing my skill set in some weaker areas that I hadn't originally associated with the humanities, such as website development, coding, budget writing, that sort of thing, but they're nonetheless important in effectively bringing one's ideas and expertise to a wider setting. So for me, the value of the humanities, the public humanities, and what I've learned is basically that participating has enabled me to bring a specific skill set as a historian, to engage in conversations with those who have been making a difference in the community around them, helping them tell their story, and helping sometimes those who have been left out of the narrative, sort of giving them a platform as well to really lead the rest of the community to become invested in that narrative as well. For me, public humanities emphasize research, respect, and conversations, supporting stories from the community that are not the public humanists. And I feel that becoming a public humanist as well can really help the scholar to realize activist goals of empowering communities, again, thinking about who controls the narrative and trying to help subvert that. And so I feel that when done right, the public humanities can give the wider community a sense of investment in and connection to the human stories that have shaped the world around them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Our final fellow to present today is Olga Fakini. Olga is a graduate student in the Department of Classics, and her research focuses on ancient Greece theater and performance. She's interested in the intersection between classics and social activism, and also in the power of storytelling to connect different audiences. Olga.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you everyone for being here. I participated in the Public Humanities Fellows Program because I've always been very interested in civic engagement opportunities and in ways that academic research could speak to a broader community. In fact, my first experience in public humanities was with the IHC 2 years ago when I participated in Foundations in the Humanities, which is a prison correspondence course that was facilitated by the IHC and that offered graduate students the chance to teach a correspondence class to incarcerated students at the California Men's Colony and Kern Valley State Prison. And so because I was already interested in public humanities, this program was very appealing to me. My goals when I started the Public Humanities Fellows Program were to learn about different ways to do the work of a public humanist as a graduate student in classics, learn about the theory of public humanities work, and get the experience of working with a nonprofit and develop specific skill sets. Through the program, I was able to learn about the way nonprofits operate and advance my goals as public humanist when I worked for New Beginnings Counseling Center as communications fellow last summer. New Beginnings is a nonprofit organization based in Santa Barbara, whose mission is to provide quality, affordable counseling, shelter, case management, and education. As communications fellow for New Beginnings, my work centered on their safe parking program. Safe parking is the nation's leading solution to provide safe, overnight, designating parking spaces, case management, and housing services for 150 people who live outside of their vehicles in the Santa Barbara community. Many of these people have full-time jobs, are single parents, or are seniors who have been evicted from their home due to unexpected medical expenses, rental increases, and other life circumstances. The program is first of its kind in the United States for serving the vehicular homeless and has been featured in national and international media outlets, including the LA Times and HBO's Vice News that I took a slide of from YouTube. This is the prison correspondence course that I was talking about, my goals that I just talked about, New Beginnings, beautiful slide on the front page, Safe Parking Program, and here we go, the slide from the YouTube video, from the Vice video that you can find on YouTube. So I took this slide from a video that you can find on YouTube where the Safe Parking Program is featured. I highly recommend that you go check it out. It's very well made, and it talks about this amazing program that is the first of its kind in the United States. As part of my work, I focused on the impact and the effects of the program on a local level in the Santa Barbara community, and I worked closely with the development manager and executive director of the organization to establish the program as evidence-based. I also worked on revising the second edition of the Safe Parking Program manual that will serve to teach other communities how to implement similar programs. I was very grateful for this opportunity because it taught me to transfer some of the skills developed within academia to the world outside of it, and I was able to perfect my public-facing writing skills. I also worked as part of a group under the shared goal of helping families and individuals in need of housing and convey the importance of the mission of the organization to a broad audience. Even if my work was sometimes challenging because it included working in a fast-paced environment and managing multiple tasks at once, often requiring very different skill sets, I really valued the cooperation and energy of the people that I worked with. I also came to know about the different programs offered by New Beginnings, such as the Supportive Services for Veteran Families program that you can see an image of from the website of New Beginnings, or the counseling clinic that works very closely with safe parking. Being a public humanities fellow had a big impact on the way that I see my work within and outside of academia and the way that I think about public humanities. For example, my internship made me think about research differently. While in my academic research on Greek tragedy, I rarely think about the existence of characters in these ancient plays as human beings who were once alive thousands of years ago. In my work in New Beginnings, I often had to think about the consequences that my work could have on the lives of the people involved. Our clients were families and individuals with pressing needs such as housing, and often trying to navigate instability and hardship. My dissertation on Greek tragedy directs my attention to the way individuals act toward one another, often in traumatic contexts and in the aftermath of violence and loss. And so I started reflecting on ways that questions of how to restore affected bonds or facilitate healing in the wake of trauma are reflected in urgent contemporary issues of civic engagement, from the global refugee crisis to the Black Lives Matter movement. Thanks to my participation in the courses offered by Public Humanities Fellow Program, I was also able to learn about different methodologies and approaches to public work. We read examples of public humanities efforts and also became familiar with the theory that underlies a lot of this work. We also developed important skill sets, such as drawing a budget or drafting a grant proposal that I have found very useful, both for my work as part of my internship and for my work in academia as a public humanist. The program also made me reflect about the value of public humanities and their importance in academia. One of the common shared foundations of public humanities projects is their collaborative format and the fact that they bring together professionals from different fields spanning across universities, libraries, historical societies, museums, nonprofits, and more. I found that the value of public humanities projects resides in this collaborative nature and in their power to bring together and inspire people from diverse backgrounds towards a common goal. My work as a public humanities graduate fellow gave me a better sense of the impact I want my research to have, not only on academic audiences, but also on wider and more diverse public audiences. It also made me value the interdisciplinary nature of my academic work because it allows me to be in collaboration and in conversation with scholars and professionals from different fields and areas. Because of this experience, I also continued my work as a public humanist in graduate school. I continue my work with non-traditional students and incarcerated students that began with the Prison Correspondence course Foundations in the Humanities that I talked about at the beginning 2 years ago. And more recently, it brought me in collaboration with the Odyssey Project, which is a collaborative theater program between youth from a juvenile detention facility in the Santa Barbara area and undergraduate students from UC Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you all for those wonderful presentations. I see thumbs up, claps, different icons. I will launch a question to all four of our capstone presenters. And it's something that occurred to me that's kind of a mash of a comment that Junga made about the way in which interest matching, I believe that's the phrase you use, Junga, interest matching is important in to your own motivation for doing the work. And Olga just mentioned how she has become, or she had to be, or was given the opportunity to recognize the consequentiality of the work, that the work she's doing with real people somehow has a different kind of urgency than her scholarship. So I wonder if each of you could talk about uh, how you understand the impact and consequence of the publicly engaged work you were doing, and perhaps how your recognition of that impact is tied to your motivation for wanting to continue the work. So I'm going to start with Olga.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Susan, for that question. I think the consequences of my work with New Beginnings, for example, with the Safe Parking program, were so evident to me in the fact that we often read testimonies of the people that we were helping or that we were working with. And that was one of the things that made me reflect in turn on my own research and on the fact that despite the fact that classics is a field that deals with antiquity primarily, some of the questions and some of the themes are so important and urgent in our lives. And so I think that to me, the drive that sort of prompted me to go to work at New Beginnings and kind of be involved in the wonderful organization that it is, I tried to transfer some of that into my academic research and just sort of see the ways that it also connects to very pressing and fundamental questions. Yes, thank you so much.
Mika, thoughts?
Yeah, well, the first thing that came to mind for me in hearing this question is an experience that I actually had when I gave my my presentation to Bakersfield faculty. Luz Arbalante's granddaughter actually works for Bakersfield College. She works in the Writing Center. And so she was present for my talk. And afterwards, she made this comment about how happy she was to see her grandmother's words being kind of used, like they obviously had donated it for a certain purpose, and then to kind of actually have those voices be integrated and engaged with, right, and brought to kind of the forefront. She expressed so much kind of just happiness at that, and that was like a really, I think, rewarding moment for me to see kind of the power of bringing in these kind of local community voices, right, and engaging them. These people who are donating these things really want them to be engaged with and seen, right? And so that was, I think, like that was a major consequence in relationship to my own project that I saw. So.
Great. And so, Dana, you said something that I thought was quite interesting, directly tied to what Mika just mentioned, namely that your interest is also in investing communities in their stories, right? Could you say more about that, and also how kind of enabling that, facilitating that, what does that do for your own motivation and commitment as a public historian?
Oh, thank you for that question. I believe, well, specifically with the comment about investing people in their communities, I think that sometimes historically the dominant narrative has excluded certain voices or has been promoted by certain people with certain types of power. So I think that to give those maybe who have been left out or not given as much of a platform the chance to share these stories and show how integral they are to the community and specifically to history, since I'm a public historian, can really help other members of the community to just step back and just listen to those stories and maybe to change how they view their communities or understand and appreciate that history and feel invested in it and connected to it personally, that it's not just of that community, it's part of the whole community. Yeah, so just, being a public historian, makes me happy that we're able to do that in certain cases if we're, bringing, specifically in projects I've done in the past where you're bringing voices that haven't been heard in a long time, sort of like what Miko was talking about, or that historically weren't preserved as significant as much, just to be able to give those a platform and to know that they're now being read or listened to a lot more is really rewarding.
Well, as Junga mentioned, she was not a humanist before entering this program. And to watch her awakening to the possibilities of humanities was utterly inspiring. So, Junga, could you say something about how doing this work has shifted or altered or impacted your motivation for the work you're doing? And not to mention the discovery of the humanities and how that's really changing your relation to your own field and work.
My own field.
Your work in your own field in MAT. Yeah.
See, so as my background is in engineering. Many times I cared about earning money and considering my own individual life, and but learning humanities through this program made me think further, and how I can contribute to society more, and bigger perspective than just in making profit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody have questions? Wait, there's a second. Yes. Anybody have questions? Hands? Aaron, I know you had a thought. Oh, I have a question. Well, Aaron, go ahead with your question.
Sure. I was wondering, now that you all are done with the program components in our program, I want to hear about what you are eager to learn or do next in the public humanities.
I can get started because it's something I'm thinking about a lot as I approach the end of my PhD, or at least the end is in sight now. I am really thinking about ways that I can continue this work in academia. And so I know that there is a fairly rigorous track for academics that includes several steps. And I am thinking of ways that I can make some of my steps centered on my work in the public humanities. And so something that was very foundational for me was the participation in the course with the IHC Foundations in the Humanities and the prison correspondence experience that I had. And then now the work that I'm doing with incarcerated students with the Odyssey Project in the theater department. And so I am thinking of ways that my research in the future can maybe speak to that, or that I can have a position as an academic that allows me to continue being part of this work. And something that I stressed in my presentation was the collaborative aspect of a lot of this work. And so I see maybe that as an avenue. And so collaboration with different departments. I mentioned that right now I am collaborating with the theater department, for example. And so obviously my research is very much centered on theater, being about Greek drama, ancient Greek drama, but it is something that is on my mind at the moment, just ways that this can continue being part of my work as an academic as I transition past the PhD and into something else.
And that's no small feat, given what is largely still the individualist inclination of the profession, where we are encouraged to distinguish ourselves. And so to really experience and further collaborative thinking and working, I think is very, very important. Other fellows want to speak to this?
Well, I've been really inspired by working with Digital Delano and kind of seeing the just amazing work that they're doing in their community. And where my mind immediately goes is once kind of I'm back and teaching again, I would love to start integrating local Santa Barbara community source material into the courses that I teach, so that we have a wealth of wonderful community partners, right? Dana mentioned the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. They have oral histories, they have documents, and stuff. And I think Ann Peterson is here with us today. I would love to create a course or do some kind of work and really practice what I teach or preach in my own community. So that's, I think, one of the things that I want to pursue next in my kind of publicly engaged work.
So you've just created some work for yourself because you can help us design or a fellow design a project to start gathering and using materials for that purpose. So we'll be in touch. Oliver from Digital Delano has a question, which I will read. He notes that for Mika, as far as Mika goes, that we valued her participation and partnership because she helped us engage underserved publics, his quotes, that traditionally have lacked access to humanities learning experiences. His question is, what do the fellows think about their future, we're sort of talking about this a bit, career trajectories in terms of engaging underserved publics? Are there ways that you as humanists or the IHC, for example, can better engage underserved publics? Thoughts about that, panelists? Dana, Junga, Mika, Olga, speak up, light up your square.
Yeah, so I can get started again, just because part of the work that I'm doing, I feel works with underserved publics, right? With non-traditional students, incarcerated students. And I think that part of the difficulty of doing this work that I found since the beginning, since the IHC course, Foundations in the Humanities, was to, first of all, being able to enter those spaces. There's just an easiness with which we collaborate with departments within academia, just because we are in an academic framework. And so departments are very open to conversations, and I felt fairly easy to collaborate within academia. But then when you leave this space and try to enter the space of a correctional facility, for instance, a huge amount of bureaucratic roadblocks appear. And so I think that this is one of the difficulties to begin doing this work. Luckily, I've always done it in collaboration. And so little by little, these roadblocks were overcome. Ways that we can be more proactive in serving underrepresented communities, I feel like begin with just a willingness to sort of try different roads. And I've seen that, for example, within the classics department, that's my department, we've had workshops and conversations about ways that we as academics and teachers in classics can engage in more diverse curricula and kind of change some of the ways that we approach the material, but also that we serve students. And I feel like, especially in the past months, there has been a lot of really exciting conversations occurring on this topic. And I'm hoping that we can see some of the results pretty soon, but I'm excited about it.
And I'm jumping out of my seat with excitement to read the chat, and Ann Peterson from the Santa Barbara Trust saying she's in on this class, and Christopher McMahon is going to contact Goleta Valley Historical Society. I am just delighted that this work is going to continue, that we can all help to facilitate it. Final moments, any questions, comments? All of you public humanities fellows in the audience, you will be here next all too soon. So if you want to query your colleagues now, we have some other wonderful completed projects coming up, which we'll be having another panel soon. But any thoughts, questions,
I see Thomas has.
Thomas, please.
Hello, thank you. Mostly this is just to say how great this was. And as someone who's a humanities person that is not like publicly oriented, I've always felt the kind of like intellectual underpinnings of what drew me to humanities were very much about citizenship and like democracy, and to see the ways in which y'all were able to manifest that and like make that a kind of tangible, real thing in communities is really inspiring. And I guess I was just sort of broadly interested if that was something that you came into these programs, into your fields of study with a kind of mind towards, or if that's something you came upon in your coursework, or just kind of what your process with that was.
Great question. Did you come in with this inclination, mindset, interest, or did you develop this and in the course of your studies, and how so, if so?
I hate to be the one who's always starting, but I guess I can't begin answering this. Or maybe Mika, do you want to go? Dana, Chunga?
We're all grateful. Take it
Okay,
away,
I'm just
Olga.
gonna start because Thomas, this question really speaks to me because I came to graduate school knowing nothing about these programs. In Italy, I never had the chance, I'm from Italy. In Italy, I never had the chance to get involved in anything parallel to academia or outside of academia. And I never really worked outside of academia except, whatever, like when I had to pay for my study abroad and I worked at McDonald's, but that didn't count. And so coming here and discovering that there are all of these amazing programs and amazing opportunities to do this work was a huge revelation to me. And it really, like I said in my presentation, it really began with the IHC because with the course that Susan facilitated, we read Angela Davis, and I learned about the prison industrial system, which was completely new to me because, again, it just varies so much from country to country. And in Italy, prisons are not privatized, and so I just wasn't aware of this as at all. And I just really became interested in all of these avenues to be an academic, but also do this exciting and life-changing work. And so the moment that I started, I just never wanted it to stop. And I met amazing academics who do this. And so I was just very inspired by their commitment and just how public-facing the work of an academic, even in fields like mine, like one of my professors, Helen Morales, just published a book, a public-facing book on classics. She was actually a guest at the IHC a couple of weeks ago. And so I just had examples all around me, and Susan, obviously, and Michael Morgan, who's the professor that I work with in the theater department. And so it was just very inspirational for me because, like I said, the environment that I came from and just coming from Italy, I had no idea that this was possible, and it is. And so, yeah, definitely did not have this drive before coming here. So thank you for asking that.
Let's not waste these empty spaces. Come on, jump in. Mika.
Yeah, so I think thank you Thomas for this question, and Olga, that was such a beautiful answer. I think I came into graduate school kind of really with those ideals kind of firmly in place, but I didn't really have a way to understand how to kind of implement them, right? It was sort of this personal passion, but not really kind of understanding how to make them a reality, how to make that passion a reality. And I think that was the most valuable thing that I got out of this program was learning like the kind of ways, the tangible ways and the tangible skills on how to kind of do this through various models, but also through kind of really, jumping in and doing it myself. So I am so I think that this program is so just fantastic for developing that even further within me.
Dana.
So I did definitely have the idea coming into graduate school that I was interested in some kind of public-facing work. I had been working at a museum that had to do with history, and I knew that I really enjoyed connecting with members of the public over history and talking about the ways in which it was relevant to their experience, but I didn't really have the theoretical framework behind that or ideas of like a wider variety of things that I could do with public history. So just to kind of think about some of the debates like I was mentioning earlier with co-creating meaning and how one might put certain things into practice, such as democratically engaging and with the public, and how to sort of take public spaces and make them more democratic in terms of the history that they represent. These are all really powerful lessons for me that I hope to be able to put into practice, and hopefully have been able to put into practice in small ways in some of my smaller projects throughout graduate school.
Junga?
I didn't have any idea about this program because I was completely an engineer when I first came, and then it's this program really helped me a lot about things that I've never thought about before, and how important humanity is.
Okay, well, we have reached the end of our gathering. Clearly, our fellows are inspirational. I certainly see you as the future of publicly engaged humanities, both in terms of what you will do in the world and how, should you remain in the academy, you will innovate from within, so that this isn't a novelty, but is an integral part of university, community college, all forms of higher ed. It's the future's up to you. There's a lot of work to do. We are very lucky to have you as our future guides. So thank you all for coming. I know it means a lot to our fellows and to the program. And be well, and hope to see you at the IHC in many different guises. So thank you, and good night to everybody.